There is a brutal truth about human nature that becomes clearer the older you get. The easiest thing in the world is seeing the flaws of other people, and the hardest thing is recognizing the flaws within yourself. The psychologist Carl Jung once said something incredibly profound. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Most people spend their entire lives looking outside. We analyze other people's lives as if we were experts. We judge their relationships, their failures, their choices, and their mistakes with shocking confidence. Someone gets divorced, and we immediately think they chose the wrong partner. Someone loses everything in business, and we call them careless. Someone stays in a toxic relationship too long, and we quietly tell ourselves, I would have left much earlier. The outside observer always seems to have the perfect answer, because from the stands, every mistake on the field looks obvious. You can see the empty spaces, the wrong decisions, the opportunities that were missed. You can scream instructions from a distance, because you are calm, detached, and emotionally safe. But the player on the field is living a completely different reality. His heart is racing. His emotions are clouding his judgment. Fear, pressure, exhaustion, attachment, insecurity, and uncertainty are all pulling at him at the same time. Every decision feels heavier when you are the one who has to live with the consequences. The spectator is not calmer because they are wiser. They are calmer because they are not the one paying the price. That is why human beings naturally become judges of other people's lives while remaining almost blind to themselves. And the most dangerous part is this: the ego loves feeling superior. Every time we notice another person's mistake, there is a subtle psychological reward inside us. It creates the comforting illusion that we are smarter, more mature, or more self-aware than the person we are observing. That feeling becomes addictive. Many people spend years criticizing the world around them simply because it distracts them from confronting themselves. It's easier to discuss someone else's broken marriage than to face the emotional emptiness in your own life. It's easier to criticize weak leadership than to question your own lack of discipline. It's easier to point at society, parents, relationships, bad luck, or unfair circumstances than to ask the most uncomfortable question of all: what if part of the problem is me? That question changes everything. Because true self-awareness is painful. Admitting you're wrong is not just correcting a behavior. It feels like damaging the identity you carefully built for yourself over many years. Most people want to believe they are intelligent, rational, loyal, kind, and morally good. So when reality threatens that image, the mind immediately begins protecting itself. That is why we judge other people by their actions, but judge ourselves by our intentions. When someone else loses their temper, we call them emotionally immature. When we lose our temper, we call it stress. When another person breaks a promise, we label them unreliable. When we break a promise, we explain that life has been difficult lately. When others make mistakes, we see character flaws. When we make mistakes, we see circumstances. This psychological bias creates an enormous blind spot, and many people spend their entire lives trapped inside it without realizing it. They change jobs but never change their mindset. They change partners but never change the way they love. They change environments but continue carrying the same emotional patterns everywhere they go. Then they wonder why the same pain keeps repeating itself in different forms. The same heartbreak, the same loneliness, the same failures, the same internal emptiness over and over again. Not because life is cursed against them, but because they refuse to learn the lesson life keeps trying to teach them. One of the saddest things in life is watching someone grow older but not becoming wiser. Years pass, experiences accumulate, but the person never truly evolves because evolution requires humility. And humility begins with the ability to say, I was wrong. That sentence sounds simple, but for many people it is almost impossible. Why? Because the ego would rather protect its image than transform its reality. Most people don't actually want the truth. They want reassurance. They want validation. They want to feel innocent in every story they tell themselves.
But growth does not begin with comfort. Growth begins with honesty. Real maturity starts the moment you stop asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" and start asking, "What inside me needs to change?" That shift is the beginning of awakening. Because the truth is, your life changes when you change, not when circumstances become perfect, not when people finally understand you, not when luck suddenly appears. Your life changes when your mindset changes, your standards change, your habits change, and your level of self-awareness changes. Strong people are not people who never fail. Strong people are those who are brave enough to face themselves honestly. It takes courage to sit alone with your thoughts and admit that maybe your anger has damaged people you love. Maybe your pride has destroyed opportunities. Maybe your lack of discipline has delayed your future. Maybe your ego has been protecting habits that are quietly ruining your life. Most people run from those realizations. They distract themselves endlessly because silence forces self-confrontation. But the people who truly transform their lives are usually the ones who eventually become tired of blaming the world. At some point, they stop seeing themselves as victims and begin taking responsibility for their future. And responsibility is powerful. The moment you stop saying, "Life is happening to me," and start saying, "My choices matter," is the moment you regain control over your direction. That is why self-awareness is not weakness, it is power. Because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal what you refuse to examine. And you cannot become stronger while constantly protecting the version of yourself that keeps holding you back. As I grow older, I keep reminding myself of one simple thing: judge others less, examine yourself more. Because the greatest battle of human life has never been the battle against the outside world. It is the battle against the ego inside you that constantly whispers, "It's not my fault." And maybe that's the real reason self-awareness is so rare. It requires a level of honesty that most people avoid their entire lives. But if you're willing to face yourself truthfully, you gain something incredibly valuable: the ability to finally grow. And if conversations like this resonate with you, there are many more waiting for you on Level Up 365. This channel is dedicated to psychology, discipline, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and the deeper truth about human behavior that most people never stop long enough to examine. Watch more videos, challenge the way you think, and continue becoming stronger mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Because leveling up your life always begins by leveling up your mind.